Good morning. My name is Jay Rothman, known as the Mind Body Architect. I am excited to share this lesson for the group Soul Legacy Movement. Iona Mead has asked me to be a guest on the show this Wednesday. And so I'm excited to share this lesson today. It is on from survival to thriving, from surviving to thriving, the key principles to living a life of inner freedom. And this topic is dear to my heart. You see, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background on myself. By the time I awoke in a hospital, I had let's say, my rock bottom in my life. I had lived a traditional American modern dream as a man. I had everything on the outside. It appeared. I had a successful career. I had a beautiful wife. I had three sons, and I had the homes. I had the vacations. I had the expensive, fancy cars, the beautiful dinners out, the high-end clothing, all the furniture and accessories to basically make that house look just absolutely beautiful. The only thing was that inside, deep within my soul, at the soul level, I was in trouble. I was dying. And by the time I awoke in a hospital, I was out of answers and I was out of time. And you see, what it came down to me was, for me, was that although I had all of those things on the external side of myself, people, places, and things, I had lots of stuff. Inside, I was very sad. Inside, I was lonely. And inside, I had what some people refer to as that black hole of the soul. And so by the time I hit my bottom, I was 54 years old, I was out of time, and I was near death. My body was shutting down. Emotionally, I was bankrupt. Emotionally, mentally, I was bankrupt. Physically, I was bankrupt, and spiritually, oh, I've been bankrupt since I was just about 14 years of age. And so that last day when I was in a hospital in 2015, I had to make a decision. And that decision was, do I want to live or do I want to die? And I clearly had my answer pretty quick. I knew that if I went home, back to my home where I'd been with my wife for just about 30 years, that I probably was not going to be alive in 1 year. And so I had to have to make a courage to change move, and that move was to not go home. That move was to have the courage to change, to do things that I had never done before in my life, stand up for myself, and begin my healing journey. And for me to do that, I had to work through a lot of fear of the unknown. And see, fear typically doesn't come from the past and it doesn't come from the present, it comes from the future. And so for me, I had to be willing to work through the fear of change and through all that process, which was a long process. It took a couple of years to work through it all, to work on healing my mind, body, and soul. I began to really come home to myself and get to know who I was at my soul level. Some people refer to it as the heart space. And by the way, I chose this background today because this is where I do most of my own healing work. It is a mountain. It's one of the trails that I go out on my own, but I also take clients out here. This is where I do coaching. So I coach people from all over the world that come into Phoenix, Arizona, and this is where I come out and do my work with them. We talk about different topics that they're working through in their life. But getting back to from surviving to thriving, the key from surviving to thriving is that we've got to focus on the four pillars. There are four pillars in life, and those four pillars are the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. See, I grew up in a home where I was taught that if you just take care of yourself physically and you go to the gym and you eat well, that everything will be okay. And and I believe that that is not, in fact, the truth. The truth is that we have to be able to create balance within ourselves, mind, body, and soul. And how we do that is we just don't focus on, let's say, going to the gym and getting your cardio up or changing your diet to a healthy, what you perceive may be a healthy diet. But it's also working on the emotional and mental wounds from our past. And typically, those emotional and mental wounds from our past come from our earlier years, from our childhood. And so I'm going to just walk a little bit so you get a little bit of an experience of what this looks like from 360 degrees. I am at the bottom of a trail right now. There is the top of one peak. This is the second highest mountain in the Phoenix Valley. It's all slate. It's an all slate mountain. It's absolutely beautiful. It's rated double diamond, extremely difficult. I do this a couple times a week with guests. But getting back to today's topic, I decided to not do it from a traditional office space or a home space, but to be out in nature, because you see, nature is where all of my healing took place. So it's a magical place. It's a beautiful space, whether it be a hike, a trail, a park, a beach, a river. a pond. It doesn't matter where you find your safe space. But what I found was that I needed to find a safe space for myself, one where I was in nature, not in a gym. The first time I'd actually hit a rock bottom, I was 48 and I had a heart attack. I decided to go to the gym, and I did that for a couple of years. But what I found was that, for me at least, in a gym, there was really no whole lot of inner peace or serenity. It was just a bunch of people working out and sweating it out. And I decided that this time around, I needed a different type of environment to connect with myself at the soul level, get to know who I am, because I had lost myself in my relationships over the course of my lifetime. And so, getting back to the four pillars is the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. The physical we take care of by physically moving, learning how to move and take care of ourselves. We also physically we have choices on what type of fuel, how we feed ourselves on nourishment. Do we eat a lot of red meat? Do we eat a lot of carbohydrates? Are we drinking enough water? Are we not drinking enough water? Are we drinking too much alcohol? All those questions come into play. But ultimately, we got to make a decision for ourselves that is good for nourishing our body. The medicine, the natural medicine that we get from from nourishment is, for me, is what I learned is a key to reversing disease. So there's the physical part. The emotional and mental part truly is understanding and accepting that we all come into adulthood with childhood wounds and traumas. Sometimes they're not significant traumas, they just may be wounds or sadness or pivotal moments, experiences that impacted our life. And we carry them into our adulthood, and we don't understand, we don't have an awareness, a lot of us, at least I didn't, that I was carrying that throughout my entire adulthood. And a lot of the choices that I was making in my life were based on these wounds that I had not healed. So ultimately, if we want to heal at the soul level, at the heart space, healing for me meant coming to terms with who I am, learning how to like myself, learning how to love myself, learning how to accept myself without expectations, learning how to no longer live in what's called inner bondage, learning that I could learn to like myself, I can accept myself, I no longer have to feel guilty or shameful and or blame others for the choices, the decisions that were hurtful for myself and for those that I cared mostly about, which was my wife and my children. But to understand that I can just accept that the things that happened in life happened because I needed to learn the lessons. And but through that process of healing, learning to forgive myself, self-forgiveness and self-compassion are so important to the healing process. Because once we learn how to forgive ourselves for what some refer to as mistakes or missteps, then we could learn how to forgive others. But until we truly learn how to forgive ourselves for the choices that we made that may have hurt ourselves and others, how can we in fact forgive others? So it really begins with us, begins and ends with us. And ultimately, once we go through this process of self-discovery and getting to know who we are and healing those childhood wounds through the significant inner child work that I did for myself, as well as that I provide today as part of my coaching programs, it really helps us begin to like ourselves, get to know who we are, learn how to forgive ourselves, learn how to accept ourselves, and learn how to become the best version of ourselves, which we were born to be. That's how the divine brought us into the universe. There's no such thing as good people and bad people. I believe we're all equally the same. It's just that we have good choices and bad choices that we make in our life, good behavior and bad behavior. So that's my some of my perspective on the going from surviving to thriving is truly about having a choice, understanding that you have a choice, we have a choice to continue to just live in a routine of life, get up, go to work, come home, turn on the TV, have dinner, crash, and do it over and over and over again. And I refer to that as Groundhog's Day, when we keep doing the same behavior and we're not growing. And I do believe that if we're not growing, we are dying. And so the key for me is, and the key for the clients that I work with and coach one-on-one and through group coaching, is that it takes courage. It takes courage to change. And through that courage, um, we learn how to walk through our fear. And when we push through fear, on the other side of fear is what's called freedom, inner freedom. And through inner freedom, we experience what? Joy, contentment, fulfillment, self-forgiveness, self-love, serenity, and inner peace can feel like. And if that's something that is of interest to you, I would love to have a further conversation with you and create a second gift for you, which is a 30-minute complimentary coaching session, a discovery session to see if it's a good fit, to see if you feel comfortable with me and someone that you're willing to and have a desire to do some work with, so that you will, in fact, and also learn how to walk from surviving to thriving in your life, because you are worth it. You are worthy of it. You deserve it. And thank you so much for listening to this lesson. Again, my name is Jay Rothman, and have an awesome day and have faith. Thank you.